Hi, everybody. My name's Jessica Colnay. I'm the Communications Coordinator for the Scientific and Medical Network, and I am joined here today by Frauke Sandig, and Eric Black, who are the directors of a wonderful new documentary called Aware: Glimpses of Consciousness, which follows six researchers approaching the mystery of consciousness from different perspectives. And so we're here today. I'll be asking Frauke and Eric a couple of questions on the evening that we will be hosting with the Scientific and Medical Network at the Beyond the Brain 2022 conference, which will take place from the 3rd of November till the 5th of November. And the documentary will be aired on the 3rd, followed by a panel discussion. So out of curiosity, well, first of all, welcome both.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, delighted to be here.
Wonderful. Lovely to have you here. So there are three main questions that I wanted to ask you both. But obviously there are many, many more, but we'll wait until the 3rd to ask you more. And the first one is, was there a single experience in your life that started your inquiry into whether consciousness extended beyond the physical brain? And perhaps Frauke can go first.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to reduce it to one experience. I mean, the first one I would say was our last film, Heart of Sky, Heart of Earth, which we filmed with the Maya in Mexico and Guatemala, the Maya of today, the indigenous Maya. And they really led us on this track that at one point, one protagonist said, hey, you there in the West, you see everything always as separated, like here's the tree, here's the house, here's the animal, here are you. And we indigenous people, we have always seen everything as interconnected. And that gave us to think a lot. And for me personally, the major experience was that my mother died some years ago. And I was very, very interested in coming closer to this mystery, what happens when we die. It's like, what happens with consciousness? Is there anything that remains after the body dissolves? Is there any spirit? Is there any consciousness? So this gave me a lot of motivation for this kind of research.
Yeah, beautiful. And how about you, Eric? What were your motivations?
Well, there's similar things. I mean, we made Heart of Sky and Heart of Earth together, and that was such an interesting experience. In that the Maya, we spent 3 years with the Maya in southern Mexico and Guatemala, and that how often we were asked by our friends, so what are you doing on your spiritual voyage today? As though you were going to this, as though you're going shopping. It was that sort of daily sort of thing. And it, as someone who comes from a very working class area of America, I mean, sort of the equivalent of Manchester, I always think, that it's not a question that you really debated much, or I certainly didn't in my youth. Although in retrospect, what was lacking for me, and I think what this whole, because it has been a voyage, has done for me, is give me a language to explore, which is a strange thing to say, because you think, well, all this should just come naturally, but no, there's so much in the material world that keeps you from thinking about consciousness or even debating what consciousness is. And I, for one, I prided myself, even up till maybe 15 years ago, and holding this Cartesian dialectic where there was this science side and there was this spiritual side, and never the two shall meet. And I was proud of that. And it's only in retrospect that I think, what a ridiculous idea. I mean, how could I have gone through life thinking that? So, and Frauke and I, have again taken this voyage together. So it's a lot of play off between us and these films that we've done that have gotten us to where we are. But I think that I always had that tendency in retrospect. I mean, I was just thinking today how much I hate the sound of a chainsaw, the trees being cut down, or what we're doing to the earth. I mean, I very much have an enormous sympathy for American Indians, American Natives, Americans. But it's only been in maybe the last 20 years that that's really congealed.
Wow. Thank you for those answers. And if somebody were new to the subject of consciousness, what kind of advice would you give them on where to start in terms of their voyage into this exploration? Quite a difficult question, maybe, but do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the interesting thing for us has always been that consciousness is probably the only object or subject you can investigate from outside through objective science, even material science like brain research, but also from the inside through meditation, dreams, yoga, whatever approach you might take. And I mean, that would be my first advice, to try both. I mean, read whatever interests you. I mean, there are many interesting books. I mean, that's how we probably did most of our investigation, to read everything which was there, from Michael Pollan through Monica Gagliano.
Yeah.
And the other thing is take a pass from the inside and research your own consciousness.
Yes, I think that's quite sound advice, definitely.
I think, I mean, for myself, and what really nailed this last film for me was, I mean, if I had one thing to contemplate, just one thing, I think it would be the psilocybin studies at Johns Hopkins. That really, I mean, when you really look at what's going on there and you ask yourself, what on earth is happening that 80% of people would say this is one of the 5 most important experiences of their lives. These are people with no drug experience at all. And that 40% answered that this one 4 to 5 hour session was the most important spiritual or most important experience of their lives. I found myself just, I couldn't fathom that. I mean, I just couldn't put that together with everything else I thought I knew about the world. And it's certainly, and that it's so universal, you know, and it wasn't dependent on religion. It wasn't dependent on background. It, you know, if anything, the place where they were doing this was probably a very difficult place to do these tests. And yet these are, I mean, if I told you about my psilocybin experience, who cares? You know, I mean, it's sort of dull in the end. But if you have 700 people reporting on the same things, then you really have to ask, why is it that we're hardwired for mystical experience? What, I mean, and it sort of falls out of anything that I can think of in terms of evolution or why we would, what is the materialist explanation for this? Well, there isn't one.
Gosh, I feel like we could be talking about this all evening, because this is a topic that I'm, you know, incredibly passionate about in both my personal and work life. I feel like we could be having so many wonderful discussions, but thank you for those answers. For the sake of time, I'm going to ask you my last question, and that is, what can people expect from the evening that you will host with us on Thursday the 3rd at Beyond the Brain 2022 conference? More specifically, the film. What can people expect from the film? If you'd like to give us a bit more of an insight into the film, that would be wonderful.
I hope it will be a personal journey for everybody who watches it, into consciousness in general and into his or her own consciousness. And yeah, it is about 6 different researchers from radical different perspectives who research this big elephant, this mystery, which is consciousness. And we had a little bit like at the beginning, we put the parable of the 6 blind men and the elephant, like 6 blind scholars searching for this big mystery in the dark, and everybody comes with a different little piece, like the trunk, the tree, the tail, and nobody can describe the elephant. And the hope is that in the heads of the audience, like a mosaic or a foggy image of the elephant will appear.
Yes, it's a really nice way of putting it. Hmm. Eric, anything to add?
Yeah, if I had to take a stab at it, I would say that it's the same. Well, first of all, I'll confirm what Frauke said, that the most amazing thing for us is that we started with this project thinking that, okay, we're going to take perspectives on researching into consciousness that are so far apart that maybe when we bring them together, we'll see a little sort of a mosaic, a sort of fuzzy mosaic. And no, that really wasn't the case. It's much closer to each other than I ever would have presumed with my materialist scientific background.
Mm.
But I think maybe more directly to your question for me is that what shocked many people who've done this in any way, shape, or form is that, but I think it's best represented by Richard Boothby, the philosopher in the film, to find out that there is something behind identity and behind ego, that there is you can't really call it an I in the Freudian sense, but that there is, in fact, not at all. There's something in us that is far more deeper and mysterious than most of us have ever investigated. And I think that that's what comes up over and over in this film. And I hope that this film isn't going to answer any questions for anybody. It's designed to provoke. And if we do provoke and get you to go and investigate for yourself, that for us is success.
Yes, planting seeds. Well, thank you both so much for answering those questions. I'm really excited to watch the documentary on the 3rd of November at Beyond the Brain 2022. If anybody here is interested in watching the documentary and watching the post-documentary panel discussion and to answer any Q&As, any questions, then you can find your tickets at www.beyondthebrain.org/evening-film. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.